everyone, what's up? This is Uri for Guerrilla Poker, and in this video we're going to analyze a hand that's so non-GTO, it's tough to call it anything other than street poker. Now, this is played at 200-400. Mr. D raises in a cutoff, and Ivan Galinec calls on the button. We get a 9-5 deuce rainbow board. Now, I have a video about how to play against cold calls, and one of the things I recommend is that most of the time you don't see bet. And the reason for that is that the in-position player has a relatively pocket pair dense range, so he just makes sets a lot, and it's tough to manage checking and betting and all those, so I prefer just not betting for the most part. D does check the flop and gets a check back from Ivan. Now, a check back range generally filters out the top of the range, but can have a lot of medium strength stuff and maybe a few traps. Now we get the deuce of hearts turn, ranges have both been filtered, and now it's no longer so much about sets. If D has an overpair, that's probably worth quite a bit, but he decides to go for a block bet, so roughly 30% pot. Now, what is he saying his range is? Well, not really tens through aces. This is more ace king high, ace queen high, low pocket pairs region in terms of value, and of course you can have your bluffs. But yeah, he bets and gets called. River king of spades, and D decides to check, so everything makes perfect sense in terms of the story that he's telling us. Say he has something like sixes, he got his bet in with protection, etc. Now the king, even though it's not a super relevant card, the board is full rainbow on the turn. He no longer feels like he can get value, so he checks it and even goes for a half pot bet. Now, as long as we keep the center of the ranges in mind, this half pot bet makes sense with anything that beats sixes, basically. 3s, 4s, 6s, 7s, 5x, anything that beats those hands. So you could go with a 9, you could go with something like pocket 8s, maybe you could go with something like pocket 7s, depends on how thin, but the half pot also seems thin. And here D brings the huge check raise to $13,000. 8x check raise, more or less. Now D's saying something weird. He's saying, oh, you know what? You thought I had this really block betty range, and I did, but I'm protecting my range. I have some sort of trap in it. Now, what kind of trap could he have? One hand would be the super traps, pocket 9s, pocket 5s, pocket deuces, or ace deuce suited. Another type of hand he could have, other than like the super duper duper traps, would be just a mixed sort of slow play where, maybe even something like king queen that he bluffed the turn with, or ace king, and he decided to throw in his checking range with his ace king, and sure, it's not the super nuts, but it's worth a big pot. So he's definitely repping some hands like this. He goes for the big raise, and Ivan goes into the tank and does not believe him and makes a call with 9-8 of hearts. Now we see a showdown with D having 5-3 for a pair of 5s and Ivan having 9-8. Does this hand make sense combinatorically? I mean, I think D played it in really an amazing way. Like, I'm very impressed by this hand. Flop makes sense, turn makes sense, river check makes sense, and then finding the river check raise isn't easy, but this hand seems like a fairly good combo for it. And Ivan somehow found the hero call, and I think Ivan is good at recognizing that his range is going to have to find some hero calls, so I don't know if he randomized or he had a read. But yeah, very well played hand, very interesting to see. I want to show you guys in the solver what this spot would look like with slightly different ranges. Okay, guys, so this is the flop, and as we see, actually 5-3 suited, once you get to 100, it does open from the cutoff. I'm fairly surprised to see this hand in there, but basically when you're in position and very deep, you get to open a bit wider. So you might see wider opening ranges from the cutoff than usual, and this is a rake-free sim as well. So yeah, I guess as I was saying, no C bets, right, for the out-of-position player. And here flop goes check-check. We'll go for the deuce of hearts turn and add in the appropriate bet sizes. Now, if you had to pick one bet size, you'd pick a big one, but if we give ourselves the option to go for a smaller one as well, I'm sure it will get used. Apparently not. apparently it does not get used by the solver. So I'm fairly surprised to see this. I would have expected the out of position player to have some incentive to bet hands like pocket sixes. Now, when you're looking at the sim and you see that, I want to look at this line and I could imagine it being a line, but the solver is not using it. So what should I do? One thing to do is to change the other bet size to be so big that it's less attractive and the solver starts using the small size more often. So by changing it to 150%, we now get this 30% size, and then 5-3 fits in perfectly there as we expected. So we get the bet from 5-3, the call from 9-8, which can also just throw in a raise. Like we said, it is ahead of that small bet range. And we get the king of spades river. 5-3, of course, no longer interested in betting. It looks like something like sevens is still strong enough to bet here because the king is such a brick. But yeah, we see a check. Here, Ivan would be betting 67% rather than 50%, so close enough. And all of his 9x and 7s and 8s can bet, so I got this one fairly accurate. Even ace-5 can bet, but that's like a special bet. So yeah, he bets, and you can see that his opponent has to make bluff catches with these hands, but also can bluff raise some hands, and one of the hands he can bluff raise is 5x. So 5-3 suited, 5-4 suited, 6-5 suited. Now, the sizing of the solver picks for 5x is more all-in than pot. Pot would be the sizing for your ace-kings, and then the pot bluff would be something with an ace to share cards. And all-in would be the sizing for something like pocket 5s or king 5, and then you want to have a 5 for that range. But yeah, amazing, right? That this guy just finds this, and we don't know if he randomized, or I mean, certainly he randomized, but he got the combo correct. So amazing hand. Now, if this were even a shove, how should Ivan play? The answer is, sometimes call it with your 9-8s. Because you have to sometimes make bluff catches. That's just how poker works. You can't call only with the nuts. And yeah, there's some blocker magic going on, but the EVs of all of your bluff catches with a 9 are going to be close to 0, and all of your bluff catches with a king are going to be close to 0. There's no magical answer to these spots. You either have a read or you roll the dice. So yeah, that's it for this video. Very interesting hand, very well played hand by both players. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys next time.